So there I was, minding my own business in the grimmiest cantina this side of the Vegas system, when Commander Vex Caloran walked through the door like death wearing designer combat armor. And let me tell you, nothing ruins a perfectly good drink quite like your ex-partner pointing a plasma rifle at your chest. "Hello, Jake," she said, her voice carrying that special blend of professional menace and personal betrayal that only comes from dating someone who literally has 4 arms and the emotional stability of a neutron star. I raised my glass in a mock toast. "Vex, looking good. Love what you've done with the whole vengeful hunter aesthetic. Really brings out the homicidal gleam in your eyes." She didn't laugh. She never laughed at my jokes anymore, not since I'd allegedly stolen her most valuable cargo and disappeared into the black. Allegedly being the key word here, because technically you can't steal something that was never properly inventoried in the first place. But try explaining intergalactic maritime law to someone whose species considers casual murder a form of stress relief. "You know why I'm here," Vex said, taking a step closer. The other patrons, a delightful mix of smugglers, pirates, and what appeared to be a tax accountant from the Regal system, suddenly developed an intense interest in finishing their drinks quickly. "Let me guess," I said, leaning back in my chair with the kind of casual confidence that usually preceded me getting shot at. "You missed my sparkling personality and devastatingly handsome human features." Her secondary arms moved to flank her primary ones, each hand now gripping a different weapon. "Show off. You disappeared with my cargo, Jake. 3 years of tracking you across half the galaxy, and now I finally have you cornered." Cornered is such an ugly word. I prefer strategically positioned for maximum dramatic effect. I took another sip of my drink, which tasted like industrial solvent mixed with regret. Besides, we both know how this goes. You threaten me, I make some witty observations about our failed relationship, someone gets shot, and somehow I end up stealing your ship again. "Not this time," she said, and the whine of charging energy weapons filled the air like the galaxy's least pleasant dinner bell. "This time I finish what I should have done 3 years ago." The cantina was empty now except for us and the bartender, a 6-eyed blob named Grok, who was probably calculating how much this little reunion was going to cost him in property damage. I could practically hear his insurance premiums climbing. "You know," I said, standing slowly with my hands visible, "when we first met I thought dating across species lines would be exotic and exciting. Nobody mentioned the part where your people have a traditional courtship ritual that ends with the male being ceremonially devoured." "That's only if you're weak," Vex replied, her aim never wavering. "I had such high hopes for you, Jake. Such disappointment." "Story of my life," I muttered, eyeing the exits and calculating odds that were definitely not in my favor. "But hey, at least we'll always have that time on Proxima Station when you accidentally shot me and I accidentally sold your cargo to pay for the medical bills." Her finger tightened on the trigger, and I realized my charm had finally met its match. After all these years of talking my way out of impossible situations, it looked like Commander Vex Caloran was about to permanently silence the mouth that had gotten me into so much trouble. Which is when everything went sideways in the most unexpected way possible. "Let's review your crimes, shall we?" Vex said, her voice taking on that clinical tone she used right before things got messy. "Theft of military-grade cargo. Abandonment of a sanctioned partnership during active operations. Violation of 17 different intergalactic commerce treaties." "Hey now," I protested, dodging to the left as a warning shot scorched the air where my head had been. "That partnership was dissolved the moment you tried to feed me to that carnivorous plant on Kepler 442. And technically I didn't violate those treaties, I creatively reinterpreted them." She advanced another step, her 4 arms moving in perfect coordination like some kind of deadly ballet dancer with anger management issues. "You left me stranded on a mining asteroid with no ship, no supplies, and a very angry warlord looking for his missing dilithium shipment." "In my defense," I said, vaulting over a table as another energy blast turned a chair into superheated plasma. You never mentioned that your species considers abandoning a mate during combat to be punishable by ritualistic dismemberment. That seems like first date conversation material, don't you think? The cantina's atmosphere was getting decidedly warmer, and not in a romantic way. More in a the air is slowly being ionized by weapons fire way. Grok had retreated behind his bar, all six eyes tracking the destruction of his establishment with the resigned expression of someone whose insurance claims were about to get very creative. 3 years, Jake. Vex continued, her pursuit relentless. 3 years I've been hunting you across every backwater system and criminal haven in this sector. Do you have any idea what that's done to my reputation? Enhanced it considerably, I suggested, scrambling behind an overturned table that was already smoldering from her previous shots. I mean, tracking one human across half the galaxy has got to look impressive on your performance reviews. My superiors think I'm incompetent, she snarled, leaping over my makeshift cover with the kind of athletic grace that reminded me why I'd been attracted to her in the first place, right before she'd tried to kill me the first time. The great Commander Vex Caloran, unable to eliminate one small, sarcastic human. Hey, I'm average height for my species, I called out, rolling behind the bar next to Grok, who offered me a drink with the philosophical calm of someone who'd seen this exact scenario play out at least 12 times before. Your species is considered a Class 5 invasive threat to galactic stability, Vex announced, her weapons tracking my movement with military precision. Humans are unpredictable, dangerous, and have an alarming tendency to reproduce with anything that moves. That last part is completely unfair and only partially accurate, I said, popping up just long enough to throw a bottle at her, which she casually vaporized mid-flight. And for the record, our relationship was your idea. I was perfectly happy smuggling contraband and avoiding commitment like any sensible bachelor. She paused in her assault, and for a moment, something almost like hurt flickered across her alien features. You ran, Jake. The moment things got complicated, you disappeared without a word. Complicated? I stood up slowly, hands raised. Vex, your commanding officer, literally showed me a diagram of how they were planning to dissect me to study human mating behaviors. That's not complicated, that's Tuesday in a xenobiology lab. You could have talked to me, she said, her weapon still trained on my chest, but her voice carrying a note of something I hadn't heard in years. Regret, maybe, or indigestion. It was hard to tell with her species. Could I, though? I asked, stepping out from behind the bar. Because last I checked, your people have a lovely tradition of honor killing anyone who brings shame to the family name. And dating a human apparently qualifies as shame in some pretty spectacular ways. For a moment, the cantina was quiet except for the hum of charging weapons and Grok's nervous breathing. Vex's aim wavered slightly, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we might actually have a conversation instead of a firefight. That's when the universe decided to remind me why I should never, ever assume things were going to work out in my favor. The cantina door burst open with the kind of dramatic timing that usually meant either salvation or significantly worse problems. In my experience, it was usually the latter, so I wasn't exactly surprised when a small figure came barreling through the entrance like a missile with attitude. What did surprise me was when this kid, and I mean kid, maybe 12 years old, positioned herself directly between Vex's plasma rifle and my increasingly fragile existence. Mom, stop, the girl said with the kind of casual authority that only comes from someone who's never been properly afraid of anything. You're making a scene. I blinked, then blinked again, then did some quick mental calculations about the statistical probability of this particular cosmic joke being played on me right now. Pip, Vex said, her weapons immediately lowering, I told you to stay on the ship. And I told you I wanted ice cream, the kid replied, crossing her arms in a gesture that was somehow both human and distinctly alien. Guess we're both disappointed today. The family resemblance was unmistakable once you knew what to look for. Pip had her mother's sharp features and predatory grace, but there was something else there, something that made my stomach do a very uncomfortable little flip as my brain started connecting dots I really didn't want connected. Vex, I said slowly, you want to explain why there's a kid calling you mom and standing between us like she owns the place? Pip turned to look at me, and that's when I saw them, my eyes. Human eyes in an alien face, bright with intelligence and completely lacking the proper respect for mortal danger that most sane beings possessed. Oh, she said, tilting her head with scientific curiosity, so you're the sperm donor. Grok made a choking sound that might have been laughter or horror. Possibly both. Excuse me? I managed, my voice climbing about 3 octaves higher than I preferred. Pip, Vex warned, her voice carrying the universal parental tone of we'll discuss this later in a place with fewer witnesses. But Pip was on a roll now, apparently inheriting both my complete disregard for appropriate timing and her mother's talent for devastating honesty. She's got pictures of you all over her quarters. Well, had. She burned most of them after you disappeared, but she kept one in her weapons locker. Said it helped with target practice. That's both touching and deeply disturbing, I said, looking between them and trying to process information that my brain was actively rejecting. Vex, we need to talk. No, Vex said firmly, raising her weapons again. We need to finish this. Pip, get back to the ship. Now. Not happening, Pip replied. And suddenly there was a shimmer in the air around her, some kind of personal deflector shield that made her look like she was standing behind a soap bubble. We've been hunting him for 3 years, Mom. Don't you think it's time you told him why? I held up a hand. Okay, time out. Everybody just time out for a second. I looked at Vex, then at Pip, then back at Vex. Are you telling me that while I've been running across the galaxy trying not to get murdered by bounty hunters, you've been raising a kid? Our kid? She's not our anything, Vex snapped. She's mine. You forfeited any claim when you ran. I ran because your people wanted to turn me into a science experiment. I shot back. And nobody, and I mean nobody, mentioned anything about potential offspring being part of the equation. Pip sighed with the long-suffering patience of someone far too young to be this tired of adult stupidity. 3-year gestation period, genius. She was probably pregnant when you left and just didn't know it yet. The cantina went very, very quiet. Let me tell you something about having your entire worldview reorganized by a 12-year-old with your attitude and her mother's complete lack of filter. It's not nearly as fun as it sounds. 3 years, I said slowly, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. 3-year gestation period. Did you think I was hunting you for sport? Vex demanded, her weapon still trained on me, but her posture shifting in ways I was finally starting to understand. My species doesn't pursue failed partnerships across the galaxy for fun, Jake. We do it for justice. Justice, I repeated, my brain still trying to catch up with the mathematics of alien reproduction and the implications thereof. You've been hunting me for 3 years because... Pip interrupted with the kind of dramatic flair that was definitely inherited from my side of the gene pool. Abandoning a pregnant partner is considered one of the worst crimes in Coloran culture, punishable by death, public disgrace, and having your name entered into the registry of cosmic disappointments. There's an actual registry of cosmic disappointments? I asked, because apparently my priorities were still completely backwards. Volume 47, Grok offered helpfully from behind his bar. Very popular reading in certain circles. I looked at Vex, Coenti, who was maintaining her combat stance despite the fact that this conversation had veered so far off the rails that we were now in uncharted conversational territory. You never told me. Told you what? She said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. That my species takes 3 years to gestate? That we form permanent pair bonds during reproduction? That abandoning a mate during the vulnerable period is considered tantamount to murder? Any of it. I exploded, my own frustration finally finding a target. All of it. You think I would have run if I'd known you were pregnant? You think I'm that much of a monster? Pip snorted. Are we seriously having this conversation while she's pointing a plasma rifle at your chest? Because this seems like the kind of family discussion that should happen over dinner, not in a cantina that smells like engine coolant and broken dreams. She has a point, Grok observed, refilling my glass without being asked. Family therapy sessions generally go better without weapons. But Vex wasn't lowering her rifle. If anything, her grip had tightened. You ran the moment things got complicated, Jake. The moment my superiors started asking questions about our relationship. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to trust me, I said, stepping forward despite the energy weapons pointed at my vital organs. You were supposed to tell me the truth instead of letting me walk into a situation where your commanding officer was showing me anatomical charts of human reproductive systems. They wanted to study you, Vex admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. My people, we don't often form bonds with other species. When they found out about us, about what we'd become, they saw an opportunity for research. Research, I said flatly. Into what exactly? Pip cleared her throat. Into whether human Caloran hybrids would inherit the best traits of both species or just be really, really annoying to deal with. I really looked at her, taking in the way she stood with my cocky confidence but her mother's predatory stillness. The way she'd casually deployed military-grade shielding like it was a normal Tuesday activity. The way she was handling this completely insane family reunion with the kind of sarcastic commentary that I recognized from my own mirror. And the verdict? I asked. Jury's still out, she said with a grin that was definitely mine. But I'm leaning toward annoying being the dominant trait. Despite everything, the weapons, the years of running, the cosmic joke that had become my life, I laughed. Actually laughed, right there in that grimy cantina with my ex pointing a rifle at my chest and my daughter making wisecracks about her own genetic heritage. You know what the really stupid part is? I said, looking at Vex. I spent 3 years thinking you were hunting me because I'd stolen your cargo. I never even considered that maybe, just maybe, I'd stolen something infinitely more valuable. You didn't steal anything, Vex said quietly. You ran from it. Yeah, I admitted. I did, because I'm an idiot who thought he was protecting everyone by disappearing instead of sticking around to figure things out. That's when the cantina door burst open again, and this time it wasn't a 12-year-old with attitude problems. It was Captain Rex and a full squad of Caloran military police. Well, I said, raising my hands as energy weapons trained on me from 6 different directions, this day just keeps getting better. Captain Rexek stood in the doorway like bureaucracy in battle armor, flanked by enough firepower to level a small moon. His scanner was beeping frantically as it tried to process the scene before him: 1 human, 1 Caloran commander, 1 impossible hybrid child, and what appeared to be a very expensive mess. Commander Caloran, he said in the tone of someone whose day had just gotten significantly more complicated, you were ordered to terminate the human threat, not engage in family counseling. With respect, sir, Vex replied, not lowering her weapon but not firing it either. The situation has become complex. It's complex, Rexex repeated, his scanner now making the kind of alarmed noises usually reserved for critical system failures. Is that what we're calling failure to follow direct orders these days? Pip stepped forward, her shield still shimmering around her like attitude made visible. Actually, it's what we're calling discovering that galactic law is really stupid when it comes to cross-species relationships and child custody arrangements. The silence that followed was the kind you usually hear right before someone starts shooting. The hybrid can speak, one of Rex's soldiers whispered, and I noticed his weapon tracking toward Pip with the kind of clinical interest that made my paternal instincts, and yes, I was apparently having paternal instincts now kick into high gear. The hybrid, I said, stepping protectively in front of my daughter, and wasn't that a sentence I never thought I'd need to construct as a 12-year-old kid who's done absolutely nothing wrong except exist? Existing is the problem, Rexek said, consulting a tablet that was displaying what looked like several different legal codes in 3 different languages. Human Caloran genetic combination is classified as a Category 5 galactic security threat. The offspring must be contained for study. Contained, Pip repeated thoughtfully. That's a funny way of saying dissected in a government lab. Standard procedure. Rex confirmed with the casual brutality of someone who'd never met a regulation he couldn't hide behind. The human will be terminated, the hybrid will be studied, and Commander Caloran will face court-martial for failure to complete her mission. I looked around the cantina, calculating odds that had gone from bad to mathematically impossible. 6 trained soldiers, energy weapons, military protocols, and bureaucratic indifference, all the classic ingredients for a spectacular ending to what had already been the strangest day of my life. That's when Pip did something that reminded me exactly why humans were considered a galactic threat. "Hey, Captain Rex X," she said sweetly, "before you start your whole evil government conspiracy thing, you might want to check your scanner readings again." Rex glanced down at his device, which was now flashing red and making the kind of urgent noises that suggested imminent catastrophe. "What did you do?" "Oh, nothing much," Pip said, her shield expanding outward to encompass both Vex and me. "Just hacked your military network using the cantina's entertainment system and uploaded a virus I've been working on. You know, a typical Tuesday activity for a bored 12-year-old. The soldiers' weapons were sparking now, their targeting system cycling through error messages in 17 different languages. Rex's tablet was displaying what appeared to be a recursive loop of bureaucratic forms filing complaints against themselves. "That's impossible," Rex X said, staring at his malfunctioning equipment. "Our systems are quantum encrypted with triple redundancy protocols." "Yeah." "Meal," Pip said with my grin and her mother's predatory satisfaction. "But you never thought to secure them against someone who learned programming from human entertainment databases and Caloran military training protocols. Turns out." Note: combining human creativity with alien discipline makes for some really interesting problem-solving approaches. Vex lowered her weapon, looking at our daughter with something approaching awe. "Pip, what exactly did you do?" "Well," Pip said, ticking off points on her fingers. "I crashed their weapon systems, filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Ethics Committee about child endangerment, submitted a citizenship application for hybrid recognition, and may have accidentally ordered 3,000 tons of emergency supplies to be delivered to their home base." The cantina was now filled with the gentle hum of completely non-functional military equipment and the sound of Captain Rex's slowly dawning horror. "You see." "Yo, I said, stepping forward with the kind of confidence that comes from watching your kid casually dismantle an entire military operation. "This is why humans are really considered a threat. Not because we're physically superior or technologically advanced. It's because we absolutely refuse to follow anyone else's rules, especially when those rules are stupid." And Pip added helpfully, "We tend to raise our kids to be even more obnoxiously independent than we are." So there we were, one human smuggler, one alien bounty hunter, one impossible kid, and 6 soldiers with expensive paperweights where their weapons used to be. It was the kind of situation that usually ended with someone getting arrested, shot, or filed under galactic incident requiring diplomatic intervention. Instead, it ended with the most human solution possible. We improvised. "Captain Rex X," I said, stepping forward with the kind of casual authority that comes from having absolutely nothing left to lose, "but let me explain something about humans that your threat assessment probably missed." He was still staring at his non-functional equipment with the expression of someone whose entire worldview was being systematically dismantled by a 12-year-old. "This is impossible. Our systems." "Your systems," Pip interrupted, "were designed by people who follow rules. Humans are really, really bad at following rules, especially stupid ones." "What my eloquent daughter is trying to say," I continued, "is that you've got a choice here. You can try to enforce regulations that are clearly unworkable, or you can accept a solution that actually makes sense." Vex was watching this entire exchange with the kind of fascination usually reserved for natural disasters or exceptionally stupid reality shows. "Jake, what are you doing?" "Something I should have done 3 years ago," I said, turning to face her. "I'm staying. I'm taking responsibility. And I'm going to make sure our daughter grows up knowing that humans don't run from family, even when the galaxy thinks that family shouldn't exist." Rex finally looked up from his tablet, which was now displaying what appeared to be a detailed recipe for chocolate chip cookies. "You can't simply decide to ignore galactic law." "Watch me," I said, then looked at Pip. "Kid, can you access the Galactic Registry?" "Already there," she said, her eyes taking on the distant look that meant she was interfacing with systems that probably weren't designed for direct neural access. "What do you need?" "File a formal application for human Caloran diplomatic immunity under the Unusual Circumstances Clause." "There's no such thing as," Rex began. "There is now," Pip announced cheerfully. "I just created it and got approval from the automated processing system. Turns out, when you file 17,000 forms simultaneously, the system just starts approving things to clear the backlog." I turned to Vex, who was still processing the fact that our daughter had just casually rewritten galactic law from a cantina booth. "Commander Caloran, I'm officially requesting asylum under the protection of the Caloran military for myself and any future offspring." "You can't," Rex tried again. "Actually," Vex said slowly, a smile spreading across her alien features, "he can. The asylum clause supersedes termination orders when family units are involved." And Pip added, apparently not done reshaping interstellar politics, "I've just submitted a formal proposal to the Galactic Council suggesting that human Caloran partnerships be reclassified from security threat to diplomatic opportunity. The preliminary vote is looking pretty favorable." Grok emerged from behind his bar, all 6 eyes wide with something approaching admiration. "In 30 years of running this place, I've never seen anyone solve a family crisis by accidentally reforming galactic government." "It's a gift," I said, then looked at Captain Rexx, whose military discipline was clearly at war with his survival instincts. "So, Captain, what's it going to be? Try to arrest a diplomatic family unit and face an intergalactic incident, or file a report recommending policy changes and get promoted for innovative problem-solving?" Rexx looked at his soldiers, whose weapons were now playing what sounded like elevator music. He looked at his tablet, which was displaying a form congratulating him on his recent promotion to Director of Interspecies Relations. He looked at us, the impossible family that had just rewritten the rules by refusing to follow them. "I'm going to need a lot more paperwork," he said finally. "I can help with that," Pip offered. "I'm really good at paperwork now." 3 months later, I was sitting in the same cantina, watching Vex train our daughter in advanced combat techniques while I handled the completely legal cargo runs that had become my new specialty. The Caloran military had discovered that humans made excellent diplomatic troubleshooters, mainly because we were too stubborn to accept impossible as an answer. "You know," I said to Grok as he served me a drink that actually tasted like something intentionally consumable, "when I woke up this morning I thought I was going to die. Instead, you became a father, reformed galactic law, and somehow got promoted to diplomatic consultant," Grok observed. "Typical Tuesday for humans, I suppose." "Pretty much," I agreed. Watching Pip casually hack the cantina's entertainment system to play her favorite music while simultaneously solving what appeared to be advanced military logistics problems. Though I have to admit I'm still not entirely sure how we pulled it off. "Simple," Vex said, settling down beside me with the easy grace of someone who no longer had to hunt her ex across the galaxy. "You did what humans always do. You refused to accept that the situation was impossible and kept talking until reality bent around your stubborn refusal to follow anyone else's script." I raised my glass in a toast. To humanity's greatest superpower being too stupid to know when we're beaten. And Pip added, looking up from her homework, having kids who are even more obnoxiously creative than their parents. "That too," I agreed, and for the first time in 3 years I was exactly where I belonged.